And welcome everybody to Yard Prep here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Louis Sung. I'm joined by Ethan Skolnick, who is live at the Hard Rock Stadium. How are you, Ethan?
I'm good. I am right in front of the bathroom, so if anything happens here and I need to go, I can handle that.
Well, listen, man. Listen, that's where all the best internet connections are because that's where you need it the most.
That's exactly right. Good point.
All right, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Miami Dolphins are prepping to face the Carolina Panthers at home is what I was trying to get out of my mouth. And this may be the first time they go 5-1 since the 2002 season. Just for the sake of clarity, I would have been 9 years old that year, the last time the Miami Dolphins were 5-1.
Just for the sake of clarity, before you continue, I was actually at that game in Denver when you were 9 years old, when they went 5-1. That's the best Miami Dolphins team that I've ever covered, actually. And that all ended because after Orlando Murray kicked a field goal for a 24-22 win in the snow, we went downstairs, and Jay Fiedler, Oronde Gadsden, and Chris Chambers were all heading to get x-rayed. And Jay missed 6 weeks. Oronde missed the majority of the season, and Chris Chambers, after the concussion, was never really quite the same player. So 5-1 is a bit of a jinx for this team, but we hope that they get there today anyway.
I mean, is it really a jinx if it's been over 20 years since they last got there?
That's a good point. Well, it never happened again. So I guess 4-1 is a jinx for this team. I would say that.
Okay, let's go in then. So we're going to talk about this going on. We're going to talk about the inactives. Once we get that list, it'll be coming out very shortly. But before we get into all that, just want to go ahead and mention, as always, this show is brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each. It's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you're any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use that promo code 5, that's F-I-V-E, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Get the promo code 5, F-I-V-E. Go to PrizePicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. All right, Ethan, so Miami Dolphins, Carolina Panthers, first time in a while that we're going to be in this position where we're going to actually be able to really set the tone in the AFC East. As of right now, Miami is in sole possession of first place in the AFC East, thanks to the Buffalo Bills losing twice. Thank you for losing to the Jaguars in London. The Jaguars are unbeatable in London, so the Bills were doomed from the start. So, but I want to really go ahead and just get into this because a lot of players that we're going to be looking at, important players. Connor Williams may not be playing. We're going to see on Jalen Phillips. I don't think we've heard official word on him. No, actually, yes, we do. We do have the official list. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull it up now in just one moment. So Jalen Phillips is going to be active. Alec Ingold is also going to be active. Chase Claypool is inactive. That is no surprise to anybody, though, I don't think. So nothing to really stress about there. I'm about to pull it up right now for everybody who's watching to be able to check it out on the screen with us. So this is the official inactives list. Skylar Thompson is not going to be playing, hopefully. Kelvin Joseph is a no. Connor Williams is out. Tyler Kroft, Chase Claypool, and Brandon Peely. So this list is once again nothing that I'm going to be losing any sleep over. As far as the Connor Williams situation, any other circumstances, like if this were the Eagles, for instance, I would be 100% stressing the fact that he's inactive. Against the Carolina Panthers, though, I guess this is where we can say, okay, we don't really need Connor Williams to be able to keep this offensive line up and running. There's a lot of players who are going to be banged up. I know Brian Burns is going to be active for the Carolina Panthers, but he is dealing with an ankle injury. There's one of their defensive tackles. I believe his name is Derek Brown, who's also going to be active, but he is dealing with an ankle and knee injury. So they're not going to be at full strength. And even still, Brian Burns would be an edge rusher, and so far Kendall Lamb and Austin Jackson, they've been holding up surprisingly well.
Yeah, no doubt. And actually, when I look at this list, it's not as bad as I thought it would be because Phillips is not on it. So, we knew before this game, and we'll get into the Ramsey thing here in a minute, but we knew you wouldn't have A-Chain, you wouldn't have Ramsey, and you wouldn't have Armstead. It's crazy. If you look at the beginning of the season and you say, who are the guys they can least afford to lose? Ramsey, Armstead, Jalen Phillips, Connor Williams were some of the guys on those lists, and those guys have been in and out of the lineup. In Ramsey's case, not in the lineup at all, and yet the team has still had success. So the fact that they get Phillips back today is good. Connor Williams getting a week off is necessary here. Again, nothing major. of concern because some of their backups have performed pretty well. You mentioned Lamb and Austin Jackson, not a backup, but Austin Jackson hasn't given up a pressure in a while, which is pretty damn good considering where he was. So they've made something out of him. That's a real positive here. And here's the thing, and I wrote a column today about this. What the Dolphins are doing well is they're handling the scripted well and the unscripted well. We saw that in the plays last week. They come out of the gate with scripted plays, and Tua is completing 82% of his passes on opening drives this season. But also they're handling the unscripted well, and by that I mean Giants came out in a totally different defense than they expected last year. They still went down the field and scored. Key players are going out. They're still winning. And so I give McDaniel a lot of credit for that. I give the players credit for that. And this is just a game that you have to take seriously enough because they are in a tremendous position. To say you're 5-1 before you've got this 3-week situation where you're going to see the Chiefs and the Eagles, who are 2 of the 5 teams, I think, that you really have to be concerned about this season. You give yourself a cushion, right? So, and if you can steal one of those 2 games, either the Chiefs against the Chiefs or the Eagles, then you're looking at coming out of this 7-2. So you cannot blow today. And I think the other thing is we look at prize picks. I would take the Bryce Young prop over 8.5 rushing yards now that Jalen Phillips is playing, because I think he might be running for his life a little bit. We saw the Dolphins had 7 sacks last week, and it looks like Van Ginkel is going to continue to play an edge role even when Phillips is back, and I think that's important. So I would expect a pretty dominant effort from the Dolphins today.
Well, I'm hoping that you're right about that. My concern with the whole Dolphins defense situation is that I know that a lot of coaches like to play favorites. I know that Bradley Chubb and Vic Fangio are very close due to their time together in Denver. My main concern was that now that Jalen Phillips is back, is Vic Fangio going to go ahead and give Andrew Van Ginkel snaps back to Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb gets to stay on the field the entire time? Because if I am the Miami Dolphins, if I am the defensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins, which I am not as accomplished as Vic Fangio, grant you, but I'm going to look at this thing and say, Andrew Van Ginkel has been playing out of his mind for the past few weeks. He wants to earn some money. And so I would not, by any circumstances, try to take him out of his role that he's been doing so well. I don't want to put him back inside. He is an edge rusher. That is what he does best. So if I'm the Miami Dolphins, I'm looking at Bradley Chubb and saying, you're the dude who is not producing to what we expected of you. So yes, you are going to lose some snaps to Andrew Van Ginkel. Do you believe that Vic Fangio is going to follow that philosophy, or do you think that he's just going to put Bradley Chubb in there and says, thanks you, Andrew Van Ginkel, for your services. You are no longer required for now?
No, I think he'll go halfway. I don't think he's going to take Chubb completely out, but I do think that he has to give Van Ginkel additional snaps at the position where he seems most comfortable and where he's been most productive. And you can make the argument he's been the MVP of the defense thus far this year. Xavier Howard's done some good things. But generally, I look at Van Ginkel has been making the most impact plays on that defense. And, that's been pretty consistent since he's been here. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, always looking for somebody to replace him. But the guy just makes plays. And there's a lot of guys on that defense you cannot say that about. I mean, he talks about Raekwon Davis needing to play a little better. He's honest about certain guys, but you're right. Some coaches have blind spots to players who they've coached for a while. And they develop relationships with. I think for the defense, look, to me, this is what it's about. Bryce Young is a guy who they're not trying to do too much with right now. They don't have a ton of weapons on this Carolina team. I think if you can keep him in the pocket for the most part, it's not so much about sacks, but it's just about pressures, getting in his face, making it uncomfortable for him. The Dolphins have stiffened a little bit against the run. I thought they did a pretty good job of that last week. All the talk about the defense, they only gave up 9 points last week. Like, Tua gave up 7. Okay. So the defense did not play poorly last week. And they made stops when they had to. It's going to be a totally different experience when they play that Eagles offense next week, when you've got an elite level quarterback, 3+ receivers, a running game that's working at a very high level, higher level than it did last year. So this is a prep game in a lot of different ways, and I wouldn't be surprised if Fangio experiments with some things that he may want to see next week. Coaches, you can't look ahead from the next, but they know what's on the schedule. They know they've got the Chiefs. They know they've got the Eagles coming up here in the next 3 weeks, not in that order, of course. But that's why I think today, again, you may see him use guys in different situations. I want to see more of the linebackers make plays. I want to see David Long make some plays. I want to see Baker make some plays. They're not getting enough impact from that position. We know what Holland provides. But again, the other story today is, and we've signaled this, we've told you this, Jalen Ramsey looked more like November than December. And all the reports today are that that's the case. that will dramatically change this defense if he comes back healthy, because this defense was built to play with those two corners, Ramsey and Howard. They can still become a top 10 level defense. I'm not saying they're going to finish there statistically because of the way that they started, but they can still be a top 10 level defense when Ramsey comes back, particularly if Phillips can stay on the field and they don't sustain any more injuries. So I'm a little bit more positive on the defense than some are, because I really didn't think they were bad last week. I thought they were fine. They were fine against a team, obviously, that was offensively challenged.
And that's the thing, though, is that's why people are very skeptical still. It's like, if you're only okay against a team that literally was last place in a lot of offensive categories because they cannot move the football, that is a level of concern. Now, if what you're saying is correct, and that is November, that Jalen Ramsey is going to be coming back, we will see how much of an impact, just how much of this defense was predicated on the fact that Jalen Ramsey would be available for the Miami Dolphins. I'm very interested to see how that's going to go. I want to see what's ultimately going to come of that. Now, what I want to go ahead and do real quick before we start wrapping up pregame and whatnot, I will get into my zeros and heroes and all that. But first, I want to just really quickly get into some of the Prize Picks props. Ethan, you mentioned Bryce Young as a potential over that I wanted to go ahead and pull up here for you. So let me just give this real quick here. So you have Bryce Young. You said 8.5 rushing yards. You said you would pick the over on him. I see passing yards for Bryce Young. And then there's this thing that's the combo of Bryce Young and Tua Tagovailoa, a combination of 505 yards. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Would you go ahead and try to get your hands on maybe one of those? And I've lost Ethan, so we will try to, I'll go ahead and I'll give my thoughts on this whole thing. So as of right now, if I am the Miami Dolphins, let me just go ahead and give all you guys here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up some Dolphins props here just to make sure that I can get everybody active here. And I have Ethan back. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. You can never count on the wireless. I will say this. I don't love the Bryce Young passing props today. I'm much more in favor of the Bryce Young rushing prop, honestly, than I would be of the passing prop. I think when you look at some of the other Carolina props, I don't know, honestly, that I would touch the running backs here or the receivers. I think possibly Hurst at tight end is something to look at. The Dolphins have gotten a little bit better against the tight end this year. On the Dolphins side, they removed my favorite prop. I hit on it 5 straight weeks. Tua 6.5 completions in his first 10.
I was looking for that last week. I couldn't find it.
No, I found it last week, but such easy money, and they took it off the board. But you can get on there, and I think they still have the passing discount on there for Tua at 249.5.
It is still there.
He could do that in a half. I would take that one for sure. I would take the Bryce Young rushing prop. If you're looking for a receiver to play for the Dolphins, Waddle at 60.5 yards feels pretty safe to me. They started to feature him a little bit more later in the game. Smythe's on there at 17.5 yards. That's another one.
He's actually at 20.5 now.
Okay, he went up a little bit. Maybe, yeah. 17.5 look good. I know it's just 3 yards.
It keeps removing the Dolphins. Like, what the heck, man? I literally am asking you to do this. Okay, whatever.
There you go. But I would look at the Waddle. I mean, look, Hill can do it every week. We know that. But I would really look at the Waddle prop today at the 60.5 passing yards. That feels pretty safe. Mostert's rushing total was high. I would look at Ahmed for rushing and receiving combination today. We know he's going to get some of what the rookie was getting. They don't have Jeff Wilson healthy. Again, hard to really read it that way because he hasn't played those kind of snaps. But I would look at Ahmed for receiving and rushing today. I think that's a good way to go.
That might be a good way to go. I do think so, too. So, all right. So let's go ahead and we'll start to conclude this pregame real quick. So I always do this, the zero and the hero, and then you give your score prediction, Ethan. So I'll go ahead and ask you, who's your zero for this game? Who's your hero for this game on the Dolphins side? And then give your score prediction.
Well, I'll just say this. I mean, the zero can't be the defense tracking Bryce Young. They have to keep him in the pocket, not allow him to make kind of the improvisational play. Like I said, this is a bit of they got another Alabama quarterback coming up next week, and that one is more accomplished at this stage and further down the line. So this is a little bit of prep for that. So they got to be careful with that. As far as a hero for this game, I am going to look at Waddle today. I think he's going to be a little bit more featured. Carolina's beaten up in the secondary at this point. That tends to trickle down to who covers him. So I feel like Tua and him have that close relationship. I think he's going to want to get him going. He hasn't had that huge game yet. Hill has, Waddle hasn't. I think he's the star today.
Oops, sorry. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm actually going the opposite. I'm thinking that the 0 is actually going to be Jalen Waddle. Not that he's going to be bad. I don't think that Jalen Waddle is bad. I think that Jalen Waddle is just not being featured in this offense. And I think the fact that they were trying to force it to him last week was part of the reason why everything went awry with Tua. He wanted so badly to get Jalen Waddle involved. He got that touchdown. Great for Jalen Waddle. But everything else, like trying to force the ball to Waddle, is what caused so much of an issue. So I think that it's going to be Tyreek again. It's probably going to be throwing in some Braxton Berrios, throwing in some Durham Smythe in there, throw in some running backs. But as for Waddle himself, unless he gets like a quick pass and then he ends up going down the field running it himself, I don't think he's going to have big numbers. So I'm going to say my 0 is going to be Jalen Waddle. Not because he's bad. He's just going to be uninjured.
Right. So what do we got for a prediction today?
Prediction for the day. Well, first of all, my hero is going to be Tua. He's going to go ballistic. I think he's going to make up for last week. And I think the score is going to be something along the lines of, I said 31-13 earlier in the week. I'm going to go ahead and actually going to up it now. I'm going to say that it's going to be 37-13. I just think these Dolphins are going to start putting up some points. I don't think they want to have a bad game in quotes. Again, so that's what my score is.
We are too close to each other. It makes me uncomfortable. 34-13 today. So that's about where I was. Again, you're talking about a major rise in competition next week, and
for real.
So you can't screw around this week. You can't get anybody hurt in the second half because they got to do more than they were supposed to do. Polish this team off like you did with the Giants. It wasn't perfect, but it was damn good enough. Dolphin fans shouldn't have been complaining about it. Not every game's going to be 70-20, but we knew there'd be some soft home games on their schedule. These are the ones you clean up. And then again, you try over the next 3 weeks. Can you get 2 out of 3? If you can get 2 out of 3 over the next 3 weeks, we've got a serious contender on our hands. I do want to mention, in addition to Prize Picks, you can bet legally at Better Edge. Go to betteredge.com and use the code 5RSN, and you get $20 to play. And we still have time to get in our weekly tournament. You just got to pick 5 games. That's it. There are still 5 games on the board. You can beat the rest of our crew and win money there legally. Lewis, thank you. I got to get to the buffet and the pregame, but appreciate you hosting today.
Have a dessert on me. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll be live for postgame right after the game.
Sounds good.